So we've got a lot to cover today, and we're really kind of only going to scratch the surface. So 2 things to point out. One, I will be here afterwards for questions. If you want to talk, I'll have my email up there. The whole international travel trade industry is a giant beast. So again, if you have any questions, feel free to write them down on the blue cards or find me later. I've got business cards here. Quick poll. As far as knowledge on the international travel trade on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being complete novice, 10 being expert, where would you say you rank? 3? See 2s, 5, middle of the road? 5, okay, nice. 7, 8, 9 to 7, okay. So basically kind of a diverse group here. My goal at the end of this is to kind of have you leaving with a international 101 scope of understanding so that if we do talk later, you're familiar with the processes, the themes, the acronyms, because we're government, so we love our acronyms. So yeah, let's go ahead and get started because we've got a lot to cover. This is what we'll talk about today. We're going to do an international breakdown starting with the entire U.S. down to the local cities like Oregon City. Current international forecast. We're going to do international markets that we will be in. And when I say we, I'm talking all the way up to like the state, even national level, and then why we are in those markets. And then we'll touch briefly on domestic development, pending on the time, because I've run late on all my run-throughs on this. So sorry, Dan. Love you. Whenever I'm talking international development, I like to start off with these slides because I want us to kind of put things in perspective. Because I often say, especially on a state level, like this is how we see Oregon as Oregonians. It's beautiful. It's Trillium Lake. There's Mount Hood in the background. We have beautiful downtowns with boutique shopping. It's tax-free. Why wouldn't anyone want to come to this place? Of course people want to come to this place, but it's what we know and it's what we love. And sometimes that vision gets skewed when we just expect, oh, well, people should know about this. People know about our area. It's beautiful Oregon. Why wouldn't they? This is where we rack up, though, on an international scale. And we're competing with all that other gray space for all the other destinations that any international traveler might want to come and visit. So just to put it in perspective, it's nice to kind of break it down. As far as the first thing we really need to do is we need to get people to the United States. And then from there, let's work on getting them to the western U.S., or more specifically the Pacific Northwest. And then we get them to Oregon. And then when they're in Oregon, we get them to Clackamas County. And when they're in Clackamas County, we get them down to all of our individual cities. So it's nice to kind of put that into perspective and realize that when you're working on an international scale, there is a kind of tamper down structure there that takes a little while to work on. So you're going to hear me say a lot of like leveraging partnerships, working with your industry partners, because you have to, because on a city and even a county level, we cannot do this on our own. We do not have the budget. International marketing is expensive. And so starting at the top, you've got Brand USA. Brand USA was started back in 2011, so it is relatively nascent. It's only about 11 years old. This was started with a Travel Promotion Act in 2009 when the U.S. realized that while international visitation was increasing, we were losing market share. And so in realization of that, they decided we need to create an overall governmental entity to basically promote tourism to the United States as a tourism destination. They thought of this in 2009. Should have thought of it sooner. But this was created. Market share did start to increase all the way up to 2015 and 16. It dipped a little bit, and then, of course, pandemic happened. But Brand USA is doing a good job of working with all the state partners to, again, market the United States as a tourism destination to the world. Then you go on down to the state level. That's Travel Oregon. Travel Oregon is the state destination marketing organization. Then you've got your first acronym of the day, RDMO. Does anyone know what RDMO is? Couple people, Regional Destination Marketing or Management Organization. So Travel Oregon, and I'll get into this in the next slide, decided to, about 8 years ago, split up the state into 7 regions. And each of those regions has their own administrator who kind of funnels everything down from the efforts that Travel Oregon is doing on a state level to these regional levels so that they can work with all of their counties and cities inside their specific region. So it's, again, just kind of funneling down the process. County, that's where we come in. That's Mount Hood Territory, Clackamas County Tourism, and then all the way down to city, Dan at Travel Oregon City. So this is kind of your chain of command, so to speak. Now, does that mean county? Are we working directly with Brand USA? Not necessarily. We usually work through our regional partners. Just like Dan works with us at the county. We work with our DMO. We work with Travel Oregon. It's important to kind of keep in contact and keep those partners in the know, top down and bottom up. So Dan lets us know what he's doing on the city level. We're letting Dan know what we're doing on the county level. and then also Travel Oregon and the RDMOs. So I mentioned that regional map. Travel Oregon, again, decided to split it up into 7 regions. You can see them there. The only thing that they didn't take into consideration was county lines. So if you can notice, we span 3 different regions. We span the Portland region, the Hood Gorge region, and the Willamette Valley region. There are benefits and disadvantages to that. The main disadvantage is it's ridiculously confusing, especially when you're promoting something, but it's using Travel Portland dollars, so you can't promote up here because that's outside of their region. But the main thing is, though, the biggest benefit of this is that we can tap into 3 different funding resources from that regional level. And we'll get into that a little bit later. We also then split up our county into urban, valley, and mountain to coincide with those 3 different regions to kind of help make it more palatable for everyone. And in case you're wondering, Oregon City is in the Portland region, the urban region of Clackamas County. Make sense? Kind of. Took me like 6 months to wrap my head around the whole thing when I first started. So let's get into the current international forecast. I'm not going to pull any punches. We'll just throw these up there. Not looking too good? No? You're correct. It's not looking that good. The plus side of this is that this is actually where we kind of forecasted we were going to be at this point. So even back in 2020, looking at when were we going to get back to pre-pandemic levels, kind of following that growth chart, right now at 2022, this is kind of where we expected we were going to be. 2023 at best was going to be pre-pandemic levels. Better projections were showing 2024, 2025 kind of at the worst. So again, we're kind of focusing on that, get back to pre-pandemic levels around 2024. So while these numbers do look bad, this is kind of on track with where we were going, and we are seeing an upward trend. So while people might think, okay, so what do we do right now? Just freeze, don't do anything, don't invest any money in the international market. No, the international market takes years to develop. So this is the time that we want to be in this international market. We want to, be going out into these different, markets that we're in, showing off Oregon, putting some money into it so that when the restrictions do get eased, when international travel does reach that pre-pandemic level, we're at the forefront of people's minds for where to visit. And if you're wondering what is the factor causing America, because again, one thing to take into consideration, the United States as far as growth, we are growing and gaining back, but we are lagging behind other countries, and there's your reason right there. Travel restrictions to the United States, COVID requirements to enter into the United States. I was at a Vancouver outdoor recreation show in Vancouver, BC back in March. I got to talk to hundreds of Canadians. They love Oregon. Most of them had already been here. Spoiler alert, they've all been to the coast. Big surprise. But on their way back, they are anxious to come back to the United States. But one thing that every single one of them told me was, and I quote, "We can't wait to come back once restrictions are eased." So that's your traveler sentiment right now. And put yourself in their position. Not necessarily Canadians, because they're kind of a fly drive itinerary. They can take a puddle jumper right down to Portland. They can drive 6 hours and be in Portland as well and be in our area. But think of someone maybe in the UK or someone in the Netherlands who wants to fly over here. And we've got the data on international travelers. We all know they come here, they stay for a longer period of time, they spend a lot of money. It's because they're coming for about 3 weeks to a month. So think about that. You're gonna plan a year in advance, a 3-week to maybe 1-month vacation. It's got all these factors. You've got your flights, your connecting flights, your car rentals, all your activities, everything's booked. You've done it through a travel agent. And then the day before your trip, you go to get your rapid antigen test. Maybe you went to the grocery store the day before that, comes back and tests positive. Vacation over. Hopefully you bought travel insurance. And that's it. So my question to you is, would you take that risk? I wouldn't. I would wait until restrictions got eased. So that's kind of the main reason why we're seeing a slower growth in the international market. And rest assured that the U.S. Travel Association is lobbying like crazy to Congress to help get these travel restrictions eased, because as we all know, tourism is a huge boon for the U.S. economy. So everything is working back towards getting back to that pre-pandemic level. But let's get into the international markets we will be in and why, and get away from all the doom and gloom. Because again, the international market will recover. People will come back to the United States. So this is a good kind of barometer as far as in whatever market you're in, whatever city you're in, this is a good place to start if you're looking at what international markets do I want to get into. Look at your closest airport, international airport, and find out what are the direct flights coming into my area. Main reason being is because then you automatically become a primary location instead of a secondary or tertiary destination. So people flying into LA, Seattle, yeah, they might come down and do that little trip, but do we know? They fly into Seattle. That's the hardest thing to track is when people come into an airport. We see the arrivals, we can get all the tracking data, and it's like, but where do they go after that? And so if you have these direct flights, and these are all the direct flights coming in to PDX, that's a good starter for, okay, these are the markets we can get to get them directly into our state. Does that mean that we are in all of those markets? No. You saw Iceland at the very bottom. We are not in Iceland. One of the main reasons it comes down to is market share. So if you look at all these different areas, so for example, the Asia market, we are in the Asian market. Japan tops out market share, beats China. We have a very good relationship with Japan. They know our product, largely in part due to a ton of work from Travel Portland, being in that market for 10, 15 years and pushing really hard. Canada, goes without saying, our neighbors to the north. Mexico's a new one. This is one that we really started to get into in about 2017, 2018. The state agencies were pumping a lot of money into it. Again, there's that direct flight there. A lot of the people coming up from Mexico, or we call VFR, another acronym, visiting friends and relatives. But the leisure business really started to take off as well over the past couple of years prior to the pandemic. So again, looking into investing in that community as well. And then Europe, UK, speak the same language, direct flight, makes sense. Germany, market share. Netherlands I want to point out though, France, Spain, Italy, they're beating the Netherlands in market share. Why aren't we in those markets right now? Well, again, direct flight. But there's other factors that go into this. Remember, I said that's just kind of a good starting point when you're looking at what international markets should you be in. Netherlands is a good case study, though, for something else. Back in 2016, there's a Dutch reality show. It's like the Survivor or American Idol here in the United States. They go crazy for this. It's called Wie is de Mol. Translates into Who is the Mole? And it's a group of people, and there's a mole, nobody knows who it is, and they're trying to figure out who's sabotaging them, and the Dutch people go crazy for it. So in 2016, they decided to film in the United States for the first time ever, the entire season of 2016 season, and it was done in the state of Oregon exclusively. So how cool is that, and what a great marketing opportunity was that for the state of Oregon, and again, trickling all the way down to the cities to have this Dutch reality show being filmed in the United States for the first time. And they took them to locations all over the state. And so after that, we saw a spike in arrivals from the Netherlands and a spike in travelers coming to this area because of that show. There was a lot of film tourism and just recognition overall, but people were wanting to go visit all of those different sites that all of the people on that show had gone to. So again, just kind of keeping in mind that there are other factors that go into this. And again, credit to Travel Oregon. They actually did a lot of work to get the bid and to get that reality show here. But again, those are other things that can kind of boost your recognition on a national level, or an international level, sorry. So now I'm going to talk about leveraging regional partners, because the things that I've mentioned so far, and we've talked about international marketing, it's expensive. And again, even at a county level, we don't have that kind of money. So remember I talked about the really good thing about why we're in 3 regions? Money. They have almost $500,000 between the 3 regions alone for the next biennium to invest in international marketing and international development. So that's something that we can take advantage of as they move forward and start to come up with their plans in those markets. So where does that money go to? What do these regions do with that money? A lot of different things. They'll do consumer activations. They'll tie it with tour operators and bookable product. I will talk about bookable product a little later. They do OTA campaigns. One of the big things that we'll talk about in the next slide as far as like what you can do even on a city level is fan tours. They will bring in and they'll use these funds to bring in travel writers, tour operators, travel agents, and they'll want to showcase the different region, and so they'll reach out to us, they'll reach out to Dan and say, hey, we're going to bring them into Oregon City. What can you do from there? Like, can you put them up at the Best Western River Shore, or could you do a kayak tour with energy kayaking? And it's a great way to kind of showcase your area for minimal cost, because you're just covering, let's say, the kayak tour, as opposed to the flight over, the lodging, all the other things. And then you can do, up on the national level, they also do co-op buys with Brand USA, where they can do like a 50-50 split. Brand USA will cover half of it. They can do targeted marketing campaigns online through Expedia in these different countries that they're in. So then where do we fit into this as far as the regional partners, we're the county, all the way down to the city? We already talked about FAM tours. Pre and post FAM trips are as well too. IAGTO is the International Association of Golf Tour Operators. They did, back in 2017, I believe, they did a summit in Bend. But then afterwards, they wanted to kind of see all of Oregon, do like a little golf tour. They asked us if we could host them here. We said, yeah, so we put them up at the Mount Hood Oregon Resort, got them hooked up with a couple free rounds of golf, took them on a wine tasting to Pete's Mountain Vineyard up there at the top, and then we got in an article in the Netherlands for minimal push on our part. I hosted a couple travel writers from Era Magazine, got an article there. That bottom right one is a group of Mexican tour operators and travel agents. They wanted to come to our area. They did a cooking class at the kitchen at Middle Ground Farms and loved it. And if you haven't done a cooking class there, you should go because it's fantastic. So yeah, kind of looking at all these things. I won't get into all of them. One thing though, like the Canada Vancouver Outdoor Recreation Show, leveraging regional partners. I said I attended that show back in March. I only had to pay for 1/3 of the expo booth fee because we split it with the Willamette Valley region and Washington County. And it also strengthens your product when you're kind of there as a cohesive unit representing more than just your county. You're representing, this area, this region. Travel Oregon was there. But again, it only cost me 1/3 the price for that expo booth. And if you've ever gone to an expo or any sort of summit, they're expensive. They cost a lot of money. So, talked about leveraging partners. What can you actually do on your own? What could we do as a county? What can we do as a city? What can you do as an individual business, even down to that level? And the answer is, you can do something. Receptive tour operators. Who here is familiar with receptive tour operators? 2 people. Thank you, Thelma. This is something we could talk for 5 hours on. There's a lot to cover. I'm saying I'm going to do a topical overview of this, and I understand the irony of saying that and then showing this ridiculous chart up here. But just to kind of give you an overview of what receptive tour operators are, at its simplest form, a receptive tour operator is a domestic-based operator, and their main goal is to just get as much product as they possibly can related to the tourism industry. So hotels, attractions, activities, dining, guided tours, and they just hoard all of this from all over the United States, and they put it in this giant Santa bag, and they say, okay, and then they dump it off to the next one up there, international or domestic tour operators. And what the tour operators do is they take all this stuff and all this product from all over the United States, and they start curating itineraries off of it. So they'll say, okay, I want to make an itinerary, Seattle down to San Francisco for 2 weeks. All right, we'll start in Seattle. Here's all of my hotel product, boom, put it up there. Here's all the activities and things you can do, boom, put it up there. All right, now let's have them go down to Portland. Portland, here's all the hotels available in the Portland region. And they start curating that itinerary with all your different options for stays, dining, activities, experiences, all the way down to San Francisco. And then they put it in a catalog. And we've all seen those catalogs, the travel ones. You open it up, it's got the little itinerary with the lines from like Indiana Jones when he's flying over. And then it's got all the different hotel options and all your different activities on there. How do you get in those? You contract with the receptive tour operator, because then what the tour operators do, receptive tour operator, what those domestic tour operators do, or the international ones, then they hand it out to all the travel agencies in the markets that they work in all over the world. And these are brick and mortar buildings with all these catalogs, and you might be in one that says Western United States, and it's in there, and then they hand it out to there, and then the consumer comes in, talks to the travel agent and says, okay, I'd like to go to the Western United States. Let's look through this catalog. What would you like to do? And that is at its simplest form, kind of the buying chain of how it goes to. And if some of you are thinking and wondering, well, wait, you just said travel agencies. Nobody uses travel agencies anymore. They do. International uses travel agencies, and they're not going anywhere. In fact, they're growing. So keep that in mind, because again, put yourself in their shoes. You're going to plan this, multifaceted trip. It's a one-stop shop for them. They've got one point of contact to call if something goes wrong. Flight gets delayed, car reservation doesn't show up. They can call that one person. Again, it doesn't cost the consumer anything, because the travel agents, the tour operators, the RTOs, they're all working off of commission from the wholesale rates that these businesses are giving them. So keep that in mind. So we ran into an issue when I first started back in 2016, hearkening back to the leveraging your regional partners. So our regional partners are Travel Oregon State partner. They call us and they're like, hey, Aaron, we're going to bring in a couple of tour operators to Mount Hood territory. I was like, great. They're like, what can you do for them? Can you put them up in this hotel? I absolutely can. All right, well, what are you going to do with them? I'm going to take them kayaking with Energy Kayak. And they're like, that's amazing. They love water. And we're out there, and we're kayaking, and Sam Derivo is giving his speech on like the history of the Arch Bridge. And then we get up to Willamette Falls, and a baby seal pops his head out of the water. Oh, it's so cute. This is amazing. And these tour operators are like, okay, I am sold. I want to tell people about Energy Kayaking. And we're like, great, do it. And they're like, awesome. Who are they working with? You? No. What receptives are they working with? What's a receptive? This was new. This was 2016. So we ran into a problem where we were showcasing Oregon and showcasing product that was not bookable product. They couldn't sell it. They work on commission. Unless somebody specifically asked over in Germany to book with Energy Kayak, it wasn't going to happen. And I had one tour operator get mad at me one time. We were at a restaurant in a hotel. He was sold. He loved the food. He loved the experience. He's like, where can I book this? And I was like, oh, you actually can't. They're not working with receptive tour operators. And to be fair, I did not choose that location. And he just looked at me deadpan and said, then why are you wasting my time? And it was an awkward experience after that. So this was the conundrum that we were coming into, is that we were showcasing our product without really any product to sell. And so what we did to solve that, very quickly I might add, was started meeting with our hotels, started meeting with our activities partners, and educating them on what a receptive tour operator is, why they would want to work with them, how they get to work with them. And then we finally ended up having product to sell. So then when we were either hosting people that were coming in, brought by our regional and state partners, or I was going to a B2B trade show to talk to these receptive tour operators, then I could either say, I have these people that are interested in working with you, or I have these people already contracted. And so did it work? The numbers say yes. International is never going to trump domestic. Domestic is always going to be your bread and butter. Somebody once described it to me, I don't know, take a look at this dance floor, and all the black parts here is your domestic, and the international is filling in the cracks. So it's never going to be, there are very few and far between examples of where international, like Vegas has a lot of this, but even in the state of Oregon, there's a couple places on the coast, but otherwise, this is not supposed to be some huge money generator for you. This is supposed to attract those people that travel when the Americans aren't traveling. So maybe shoulder seasons during the weekdays. But yeah, so if you look at the numbers there, what I wanted to see in this was their progress in our growth. So I wasn't so much worried about the sales and the numbers. I was wanting to see that upward trend. And that's what we were seeing, which made me happy and made our partners happy. 2019, I say estimated from Q1 because we didn't get the Q4 report, but we were well on pace to break 85 grand and 700 room nights. So sad news with that is that the pandemic happened. A lot of hoteliers that we spent all that time and effort educating left. Some people were promoted from positions that weren't necessarily sales or revenue manager positions. So the re-education process now has started to take place because a lot of these hotels that had, let's say, 3 contracts with 3 different receptive tour operators, the new person that came up when it came time to up those contracts in 2020 or 2021, they didn't, I don't know what this is. I don't know this company. No more contract. So not necessarily starting from square one, but kind of having to do this work again and get people back, in the system. So I'll talk about a little work that we're doing. I've been back for about 7 months now, after about a 1.5 year hiatus due to COVID. But in those 7 months that we've been back as far as international work, Go West is the trade show that I've been going to since 2016. I mentioned this one because this has the highest ROI for me. Those numbers that I showed you previously, those were all from relationships and contracts made at that one conference. So I will be going to that conference every year. Total cost for us is about $4,000. That's the cost to attend the summit, plus my travel, plus my lodging. Even just this year, we had 29 interest from 22 appointments and 29 hotels and activities. That's great. Will they all sign contracts? No, probably not, but some will. And then TMK Creamery was the biggest win this year because getting on an actual tour is the hardest thing to do on an itinerary. And Tessa, if you haven't been to TMK Creamery or met them, fantastic people. I talked to Maritza at Destination America, just our little 12-minute speed date appointment that you go at these Go West conferences. a lot of tourism is shifting now too to like educational tourism, sustainable tourism, giving back to the community that you're visiting. And that's what she was really big on. She's like, do you have any examples? And I was like, I do. TMK Creamery, they're all about the story, the family behind your food, where your food comes from, upcycling everything. Does anyone know TMK Creamery makes vodka? They call it cowalcohol because it is made from the spent whey of the cheese that they process. And it is surprisingly smooth, and they actually market it as a high-end vodka. They are the only place, she did the research, they're the only place in the world that does this. So I took little airplane bottles of that to give out as little gifts to all the people that I met. And I think it paid off because, again, contract. They have 9 motor coach tours for the next year, and that's around $9,000 that's going to go directly into the pocket of TMK Creamery. So that's why I go to these shows. That's why I do what I do, is to get that contract and get that money and get those people to those businesses. Vancouver Outdoor Adventure and Travel Show, that's the one I talked about before. This is a different one. It's a consumer-facing one, but it's a good way to kind of get your finger on the pulse of the Canadian community, especially in British Columbia, to see kind of what their sentiment is, what their knowledge is of the area. And again, just keeping that relationship going, because the best thing about the show that I went to in March was they know our product, they love our product. I was even trying to like sell them on Washington. I'm like, oh yeah, you go down to Seattle, stop there. They're like, no, we just want to come straight to Oregon. Okay, great. And again, figuring out those things like they told us, all those people saying, we want to come back, but we have to wait till those travel restrictions are eased. And then again, a lot of people are second, third, fourth time visitors. They've been to the coast. Like, I've been to the coast, and I'm going to go back to the coast, but what else can I do while I'm here? I'm going to take another week or two, and can I go into Central Oregon? Can I come up to Mount Hood? What are the cities and places I should go, things I should see and do? So, great show to go to. And then the only other show I'm going to this year is IPW. This is the huge one. Brand USA puts this on, so it is the showcase of America to the world. It is media, travel writers, receptive tour operators, travel agents, everyone from all over. There's 3,000 people coming to Orlando, and America is basically showcasing itself to there. Talk about leveraging partners. Portland Region Funds is paying my way to go there. So I'm paying for my lodging and transportation, but as far as being in that booth, and again, IPW is not cheap. They're paying for it, and they're also bringing 3 partners from the region. So we're bringing 2 hotel partners and an activities partner, and they are completely paid for. So that's something else to keep in mind, is that we're bringing these partners at no cost to them but their time to showcase their own activity, their hotel, to all these different operators that we're talking to. How am I doing on time? Not good? I'm getting a head shake from Dan. Okay, I'm going to blow through domestic development, but can talk about it a little later. Again, I talked about this before. I'm big on partner collaborations. I want kind of a cohesive county of everyone working together. St. Joseph's reached out to me, and they're like, hey, why isn't our wine in local hotels? And why can't we do wine dinners? So reached out to Our Table Cooperative, reached out to Ginger at the Hilton Garden Inn in Lake Oswego. Now their wine is in Hilton Garden Inn Lake Oswego. They've also started a program of wine tasting, St. Joseph's wine, for any of their business meetings and events that they have there. Our Table Cooperative is going to do a wine dinner with them. I'm working on site-specific itineraries for the I-5 and 205 hotels in this area, because those are the ones impacted the most by the pandemic. And these are going to be, this is more capturing the audience at the hotel and getting them to go spend money in the outerlying businesses. And they're going to be themed around family-friendly, business traveler, couples night, things like that, and really highlight the places that they can go to in a very small radius around those hotels along the I-5 and 205 corridor. We did an OTA campaign with Expedia. This is, again, directly with the I-5 and 205 hotels. This is to get more people and money to those hotels. It did really well. This is the first month number. It will end the end of this month, so in about 6 days. 7-to-1 return on ad spend. That is fantastic. Every dollar we're spending on this campaign, $7 back. So we're projected to do about $350,000 to $400,000 in gross sales, and that is directly from Expedia, all the different people clicking on the different ads to go to our landing page and book on that landing page to all the different hotels along that corridor. I threw Best Western up there because that is the hotel in Oregon City. Holly was super pleased with the $168 average daily rate. Destination Ready program is another thing that I did. I applied on behalf of Malala and the Malala River Recreation Area to Travel Oregon for this program to basically create tourism assets for whatever area you felt was in need of this. Just know that it's a program that's going on right now. We're wrapping up the final report. We've got an action team together to create this asset map that's going to kind of highlight that Malala River Recreation Area, the city of Malala, and kind of the outerlying agricultural areas as well. So in summary, Leverage your county and regional DMO partners. I think I've hammered that home enough. International is going to recover. It's just not going to happen overnight, so nobody panic. Receptive tour operators. We can talk more on this because there's a lot more to talk about. And take advantage of free research out there. If you just personally want to look, there's a lot of different sources. I subscribe to Inbound and Travel Vertical. Those are monthly newsletters that come out. Inbound especially has a really good information on kind of international travel trends, what's happening. Their data comes from reputable sources. Travel Oregon has a very good intuitive research page, and their dashboard's great, industry.traveloregon.com. LaDan is their head researcher there. She is fantastic. But again, a lot of good resources on there from sources like Dean Runyon, other research. And then Hood Gorge, and we just contracted with Datafy. This is scary, scary, sexy data. Like, it makes me want to throw my phone out the window, but at the same time, it follows people, it tracks people's cell phones so that you can look. The thing that we saw on this as far as the benefit was events. You can see how many people came to your event if you kind of geofence an area, but more importantly, you can see where they came from and where they went afterwards. And so that's just scratching the surface of what they can do. So like I said, scary stuff, but from a marketing standpoint, it's fantastic. And Dan will have access to that. This is stuff that we have a contract with, but if our city partners want to get in, if you have an event in your area, we can provide that. I am over time. That's my email. I have business cards. I'll be here for questions and stay afterwards. So if you do have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me. This is what I do. So, thank you.